Tonight, we are going in depth on the Environmental Protection Agency, also known as the EPA. It's an agency that's seen dramatic swings in its policies, and here's why. If you felt like in the last 10 years, the American political pendulum has had some hard swings, and I'm just saying in just the last 10 years, it has. We've gone from Obama to Trump to Biden, back to Trump. And when Democrats have been in the presidency, the EPA shifts more towards focusing on climate change. So what happens to the EPA when a Republican president is in charge, like we have now with President Donald Trump? Obviously, the administration has shown it has openly questioned things about green energy and climate change data. Joining me on the program tonight to speak unedited about what the EPA is focused on right now in President Trump's second term is EPA Regional Administrator Scott Mason to talk about where the focus is now, because just 2 years ago, when it came to the EPA, things were clearly very different. Mr. Mason, we've had some ideological shifts just among the American people from Obama to Trump to Biden to Trump. I'm wondering, what's it like at the EPA? Multiple years of just going from left to right. What's it like right now?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Rick. I really appreciate it. It's great to be on FOX23 in Tulsa and to join you all tonight. So I am originally from Western Oklahoma. I am an appointee of President Trump, and we just crossed our 1-year mark in the Trump administration and thus the Trump EPA. So you talk about the swing back and forth between administrations, and really our environmental policy in the Trump administration is protection that empowers rather than restricts, and it's regulation that clarifies rather than complicates. And it's this idea that the environment and the economy can be partners rather than adversaries. So that's really overall the gist of what we've been focusing on. You know, one of the things that we are also leaning into is just listening, having an ear out on the ground. And one of the places I love to go back to all the time is Oklahoma, my home state, and listen to the folks that have to deal with the EPA and how can EPA work better with you. At the same time, we are cracking down on pollution. We are protecting human health and the environment, but what are ways that EPA can work with you? One of those ways, we held a roundtable, a listening session with Ag Secretary Blaine Arthur in Western Oklahoma back early last summer. And the number one topic that came up out of that discussion was, please do something about the diesel exhaust fluid issues that farmers and ranchers, truck drivers have had to deal with. It's also known as DEF. And so we took that back, started working with our staff in Washington on that very issue. And so we came out with some initial guidance late last summer, and I'm proud to say that we are continuing to lean into that, and we are now taking that a step further by possibly going into rulemaking on that. So there will be more to come on the diesel exhaust fluid issue, but that's one example of how we are just listening to the everyday Oklahoman, in this case, everyday American, to really figure out what are issues that you're dealing with and what are ways that the EPA can work with you better on.
I've heard President Trump talk a lot about clean air, clean water. It seems like, is that the focus and not so much the climate change stuff these days?
It's clean air, clean water, and clean land. All of the above is what we are focused on. We want to ensure that every American has clean water to drink, clean air to breathe, and clean land to live on, and that will not be compromised in the Trump administration. And one of those is actually, I'm glad you brought up about clean water, because WOTUS is a big issue, especially there in Oklahoma. When we talk about waters of the United States, we want to return that definition. So we've proposed a new definition to WOTUS that gets us back in line with the Supreme Court's decision on Sackett. That was the original intent of what WOTUS should stand for. And as I often like to say, my stock tank in Western Oklahoma on my farm is not a waters of the United States. We need a definition that is clear, concise, and durable, and that's exactly what we're focused on.
So let me just ask you this, because we did see a lot from the Biden and the Obama years. Does the Trump administration not even consider climate change in its policies or carbon emissions, or how do you handle the issue of carbon?
Well, what we focus on day in and day out is just ensuring that every American has clean land, clean air, and clean water to drink, clean air to breathe. And so when we start talking about that, there was also a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse that took place in the Biden administration. You go to the green news scams that were happening and the gold bars off the Titanic, as you often heard referenced. We're not focused on that. We're focusing on human health and the environment, the original intent of this agency, and that's what we're turning the EPA back to.
What does the next 3 years look like for you? You just finished year one. What can we expect for the next 3 years?
Yeah, we are moving at the speed of Trump. So we are moving at lightning fast speed. That is clearing through our SIP backlog, our state implementation plan backlog, working with states, cooperative federalism. We have a great partnership with the state of Oklahoma. As you probably realize, I'm the former Deputy Secretary of Energy of Oklahoma, so I have already great relationships with our energy and environment departments in the state, with the governor's office, with our legislature. So continuing to work with our states here in Region 6 and across the country, frankly, for that matter. But also there are so many other issues. I mentioned addressing the SIP backlog. Emergency response has been a big one in this administration, letting folks know that they can count on the U.S. EPA when there is a major environmental disaster or issue that comes up. One example of that is in Weatherford, Oklahoma. You may remember the ammonia leak just a couple of months ago. I think it was right before Thanksgiving. And that there was a massive evacuation of much of the city of Weatherford. EPA was on the ground within a matter of hours. We actually deployed an on-scene coordinator from our Tulsa office to be there and started working hand in hand with local and state officials immediately. And we worked with them to ensure that that everything was safe for the residents to return to their homes, which ultimately it was, thankfully. But it's things like that. So. We're also working in McAllister with the Army Ammunition Plant, the Department of War, on some PFAS issues, forever chemicals that we're starting to learn more about, and working with the Army in this case, but all of the Department of War, and ensuring that water is safe to drink when we talk about these forever chemicals. We also mention just having regulatory certainty. The one thing that I hear over and over as I travel around EPA Region 6, which consists of 5 states, Arkansas, New Mexico, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Texas. The one thing, regulatory certainty. Folks want to know that they can count on the EPA to not swing this pendulum back and forth, and to have that regulatory certainty. They know what they're getting into. That's why we're working on WOTUS. That's why we're working on DEF. That's why we're working on so many of these issues, to ensure that regulatory certainty.
So my final question is, and we often hear this thrown around, does the Trump administration want to get rid of the EPA?
Well, I am here with you today, so I think that answers that. The EPA is very much a central part of this administration's focus, and we are leaning in, we are working hard, and we are working to improve the lives of everyday Americans.
Anything else you'd like to mention? I appreciate your time today.
I don't think so. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.